Well, people immigrate for all sorts of reasons, but the primary one, especially with respect to the Punjabi community, is for social, economic opportunity. And even initially, it tends to be really weighted on the economic opportunity, but as Punjabis settle and become integrated in Canadian society, they grow to appreciate the social opportunity as well.
मेरा नाम इंदर कौर सिद्धू है।
My name is Sukhwant Dhundal.
Tarlochan Sidhu.
Are you ready?
Yes.
पता नहीं पता मैंने 30-40 साल हो चले आई नहीं अनपढ़ है नहीं मैनू इन्ने नहीं सन्ना का पता है उम्र मेरी उदों 40 साल की सी सारी जब मैं आई हूँ।
I came to Canada in May 1975. I was 18.
1985. I was 12 years old.
ਪੁੱਤ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਕੋਈ ਸੀਗੀ ਪਈ ਅਸੀਂ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਜਾਈਏ ਮੈਂ ਤਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਮੰਗਦੀ ਪਈ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਜਾਈਏ ਮੇਰਾ ਤਾਂ ਉੱਥੇ ਹੀ ਦਿਲ ਸੀਗਾ ਸਾਡਾ ਕੰਮ ਬਹੁਤ ਚੱਲਦਾ ਸੀ ਉੱਥੇ ਗੱਡੀ ਚੱਲਦੀ ਸੀ ਖੇਤੀਬਾੜੀ ਚੰਗੀ ਚੱਲਦੀ ਸੀ ਤੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਕਰਕੇ ਆਉਣਾ ਪਿਆ ਸੋਚ ਬਸ ਆਹੀ ਸੀ ਵੀ ਅਨਪੜ੍ਹ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਵੇਰੀਆਂ ਹੀ ਤੋੜਨੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਡਰ ਜਿਹਾ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਸੀ ਵੀ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਉੱਥੇ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਹੋਣਾ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਜਦ ਇੱਥੇ ਆਏ ਸੀਗੇ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗ ਗਿਆ ਸੀ ਵੀ ਇੱਥੇ ਆਹ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਨਾ ਪੈਣਾ ਤਾਂ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਪੈਸੇ ਬਣਨੇ ਆ ਨਹੀਂ ਤਾਂ ਪੈਸੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਬਣਨਗੇ ਜਾਣੀ ਐਂ ਸੀ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਵੀ ਇਹ ਤਾਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਚੰਗੀ ਆ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਨਾਲ ਬਹੁਤ ਚੰਗੀ ਮਾਹੌਲ ਆ ਇੱਥੇ
Actually, I came as a dependent child of my parents. So my father was here and my family was coming, so I came with them. Well, I think basically the stories which we heard in Punjab about Canada was that this is a beautiful land, you can make lots of money and that kind of thing. I think because it was a summer, May, so weather was good, it was not raining, it was sunny weather, so I saw the cleanliness, buildings, big buildings, clean buildings, so I was impressed by it. I think the biggest surprise for me was that during that time the sun was shining very late, 9:30, something like that. So I had never experienced that in my life before. That sun is up till 10 and in the morning it's up at 5. So that was really surprising.
Well, brighter future basically. I was too young to have any goals or anything like that, but just looking forward to a brighter future. I heard it was a clean place, a clean and safe place. Mountains, I heard about, especially about West Coast here in Vancouver. Mountains and lakes, rivers and so on. I was trying to imagine what would it look like.
ਪਹਿਲੀ ਦਫਾ ਖਾਧਾ ਸੀ ਪੀਜ਼ਾ ਮੰਗਾਇਆ ਸੀ ਉਹ ਖਾਧਾ ਸੀ ਠੀਕ ਲੱਗਾ ਸੀ
I think, I think I still remember it. I think after 2 weeks or 1 week, because my elder brother was here before me. He came 2 years earlier than me. So he took me with his friends to a McDonald's at, I still remember, Nanaimo and Kingsway. The McDonald's is still there. So he took me there and he ordered a Big Mac for me. So that was my first try to the Western food, as well as like we never ate beef in India. So that was my, so I think subconsciously I ate hamburger. But subconsciously, I think in my mind that beef eating is not good. So it didn't taste that great. But that was my first experience.
It's a good question. It's very hard to tell. Now, I'm not sure. Probably, I never thought of that. Might be something to do with the fast food, maybe burgers, or it could be a pizza kind of thing.
ਇੱਥੇ ਮੈਂ ਆ ਕੇ ਕੀਤਾ ਬੇਰੀਆਂ ਦਾ ਕੰਮ, ਬੇਰੀਆਂ ਤੋੜ ਕੇ ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਆਪਣੀ ਗਵਰਨਮੈਂਟ ਦੀਆਂ ਕੋਟੀਆਂ ਬਣਾਉਂਦੀ ਸੀ, ਉੱਤੇ ਸਟੈਂਪ ਲੱਗਦੀ ਸੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੀ।
Actually, I was ready. I was prepared. The only thing I was expecting was that I'm going to go there and I'm going to find a job and I'm going to work. And that's kind of like I had no intention in my mind that I'm going to study or do something. So basic thing was that I'm going to go and work there. So because in India I was studying first year sciences, I was taking pre-medical, all those subjects. So I was familiar with the terminology which they use in first aid attendant and that kind of thing. So it was easier for me to get that certificate. So the day I received the certificate, I think the second day I went to apply for a job in a sawmill, and when I came home they called me that okay, you can come start working next Monday, that kind of thing. So then I started working at the sawmill, and I worked there for 3 years. In 1980 I went back to India after 5 years coming here. Then I got married there and came back, and my wife came back 6 months after me. So then we were here as a family. So she also wanted me to study further, and I also wanted. So I think then I was going to school as well as I was working. So gradually I got a job, kind of office job. At that in a People's Law School, it's a non-profit organization which was providing education to immigrants and other people about the law. So I started working with them and worked with them for 6 years, and also continued taking courses at SFU. At first I started at Quantland, then I started Quantland Surrey, then I started going to SFU. So then after working 6 years, I decided, okay, now is the time to finish my education, finish my BA. So I went to school, SFU, finished my BA, and then after that I did my master's in communication from SFU. In 1978, I wrote a very small, it's called mini story, and sent it to that magazine, Vatnadur, which was, and the editor was Sadhu Bining at that time. So he liked it. He said he's going to publish it, and then he called me at home, and that why not I should come to a literary organization. At that time there was a Punjabi Literary Association which was formed in 1973. So I started going there, and then because the work at the Vatnadur magazine, which Sadhu Bining was editor. So it was all volunteer. Then he asked me that do I want to help him in help producing the magazine? And I said yes. So then I started working with him as an assistant editor to the magazine. So that was my start into literary activities in here. So we started a theatre group which was called Vancouver Sat, and so in that theatre group, Sadhu, myself, his wife, my wife, and other friends, all immature actors and directors. So we started producing plays about the situations within the Punjabi community.
Went to school. I did work here part-time afterwards, helping parents out. They were picking berries on farms. They couldn't get any decent job, back then it was hard to get jobs. When I was in school, our focus was to study hard and and get a better job, a better paying job. And in school, my goal was to be a heavy-duty mechanic or certified mechanic. While I was in school, I worked in farm, so on the weekends and holidays. So for me, going on holidays, taking time off, going to beaches, it was not the thing. If I had 2 or 3 days off, I would be looking for work where I can make some extra money so we can pay our bills and bring a food to the table. Well, I couldn't really pursue with my goal of being a mechanic because I had to go to a post-secondary education for that, or attending BCIT. We were kind of, family needed financial assistance, so I started working full-time. And the job I was getting, I started driving a truck, so it was a better paying job. So when you actually did the calculations, what I'm gonna make becoming a mechanic and what I was making at the time driving a truck was not a whole lot difference. Of course, mechanic would have been long term, but we had to same time look at the short term goals too, what we needed at the time. So I didn't pursue my career in mechanic. I actually started driving a truck.
During the time period of the 60s and 70s and even the early 80s, even though under this point system that was instituted in 1967 and the bringing in of multiculturalism policy in 1971, it doesn't necessarily mean the society was structured as such to help the integration process for immigrants. And so what happened was people would come here, and if they would go into school, they may be behind in their English skills, and so then they would be they may experience being marginalized, and they could have even experienced actual marginalization through not being encouraged to do certain fields, or even falling through the cracks through the school system, because there was an ESL established at that time. And in my book, there is a narrative about someone who was taken in a handicapped bus to go to another place. All the immigrants were grouped together, all the immigrant children, to go and do an English class that was a lot lower from the level that they were, their grade at that time, and it was very humiliating for them. So ESL wasn't established at that time either. And so it was very easy for students to feel alienated and marginalized because of the language barrier.
ਪੰਜਾਬੀਆਂ ਨਾਲ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ, ਗੋਰਿਆਂ ਨਾਲ ਕੋਈ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀਤੀ, ਹਲੋ ਸਲੋ ਹੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਸੀ ਗੋਰਿਆਂ ਨਾਲ ਤਾਂ। ਨਹੀਂ ਕੋਈ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਲੱਗਾ, ਜੇ ਕੋਈ ਬੋਲਾਉਂਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਤੇ ਉਵੇਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਬੋਲ ਪਈਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ, ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਨਾਲ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ। ਗੋਰਿਆਂ ਨਾਲ ਤਾਂ ਸਲੋ ਹੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਸੀ ਜੀ, ਕੋਈ ਬੋਲੀ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ, ਗੋਰਿਆਂ ਨਾਲ ਕੀ ਬੋਲਣਾ ਸੀ।
Okay, like personally, like direct and personal experiences, like I think maybe 2 or 3 incidents, like when I was walking on the street and somebody would come and say that, hey, you go back where you come from, that kind of thing. Though that was like personal direct experience which I experienced. But at that time, that I think things were happening was that sometimes some a racist person would come and throw eggs to your windows or break your windows in at night time. There were some incidents of even 1 or 2 incidents where they threw a handmade bomb in somebody's house. So those that was the atmosphere at that time which Punjabi community was facing.
Well, in school we faced quite a bit racism issues. I noticed back then people were immigrating into British Columbia, but it was all like into patches. It wasn't the community was all over the place. And there were small patches where it was kind of normal, and other sites where it was more Caucasians. I couldn't blend into them, not speaking the language properly or having friends and stuff. So I was missing out on a lot of the conversation they were having. So that kind of put me into a spot where they were making fun of me or fun of the other students that came from overseas, immigrated into Canada. Back then I was also had a long hair, so and I was tying up my hair is up top with a little turban. So people would come and when they were discriminating, they would put juice or stuff like that into my hairs. So they were actually kind of attacking me how I looked and on a religion part of thing. You know, they were calling us Pakis and all that. It was a pretty common word back then. You know, it doesn't matter. They didn't know who Paki was or whatever. They were just calling us Pakis and just bullying, basically. That's what I felt. So I ended up cutting my hair, and then I went clean shaved for a while when I was in school, just to get away from that bullying stuff that was happening on our daily basis too.
ਇੱਥੋਂ ਆਸ ਇਹ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਵੀ ਮੈਂ ਪੜ੍ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਗਈ ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਤਾਂ ਵੇਰੀਆਂ ਤੋੜਨੀਆਂ, ਵੇਰੀਆਂ ਸੁਣੀਦੀਆਂ ਸੀ ਵੀ ਉੱਥੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਵੇਰੀਆਂ ਤੋੜਨੀਆਂ। ਜਿਹੜੇ ਅਨਪੜ੍ਹ ਬੱਚੇ ਆਮ ਬੰਦੇ ਆ ਪੜ੍ਹੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਜੋਬਾਂ ਮਿਲ ਜਾਂਦੀਆਂ। $2.5 ਦੀ ਜੋਬ ਸੀ ਉਦੋਂ। ਸੋਚ ਬਸ ਆਹੀ ਸੀ ਵੀ ਮੈਂ ਆਪਦੇ ਘਰ ਦਾ ਇੰਨਾ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਾਂ, ਆਹ ਬਣਾ ਲਾਂ, ਘਰ ਬਣਾ ਲਾਂ ਆਪਦਾ ਤੇ ਚੰਗਾ ਚੰਗਾ ਘਰ ਬਣਾਵਾਂ, ਚੰਗਾ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਾਂ ਤੇ
I think at that time, simple was that I'm going to go and find a job, work, earn some money, and that's kind of better life. Like there was no definitive thing that you know what that better life is. So it was basically that you know I'm going to go find a job and just do you know earn some money and that's it. And I think also I think during that time not only me but other immigrants, like when we came, so there was sometimes like some kind of desire was that you know you're going to go to Canada, or even people who came to England, you're going to work 5 years, make enough money, and then you're going to come back and live in India, that kind of thing. And I think like I had that, like I came in 75 and I had that kind of feeling till 1983, 1984, I would say 4 or 5 or something like that. I've like that kind of desire that I'm going to go back, and but that changed when I was here 10 years and I was started involved in, so then that changed. That then I thought that no, this is my country and I'm going to be here, and that was a very interesting experience with our literary magazine. The name of the magazine was Watano Dur, Far from the Motherland. So and we continued publishing it like up to 83. Then the people in Edmonton, they published till 1986. In 1989, and they stopped publishing it in 1986. And 1989, Sadhu Binning and I, we restarted the magazine, but this time we called it Watan. That's not far from motherland. This is our country. So that is kind of very symbolic change. And we wrote, I think, first editorial in the magazine that okay, this is not, this is our Watan, this is our country. We are going to stay here, and we in this magazine we are going to talk about things which matters to us here. So that kind of thing. Like if we compare what was being published before in that magazine, so sometimes our majority of stuff was about India, their political situation in India, but our emphasis then in Watan we started that no, we are going to talk about Canada. And so that changed after 10 years of that, I'm going to be here. I think so. Like when I think about it, from where I started, I came to Canada from grade 12, and I came from a village, so like the education system in India is kind of 2-3 tired. People who are in cities have better education. So if I compare back and look back, then I think I'm very satisfied, because I took on my own pace. I studied, I did things, I did my master's, which I had no plan in the beginning that I'm going to do it, but and I have written few books, so that kind of, I feel very satisfied where I am.
Well, people always want more, like you're setting a goal in a life. Your goals are, what I normally do, I tend to set my goals at a little bit higher. So that means I'm challenging myself all the time to achieve. If you say, did I achieve what I really wanted to achieve? Well, somewhat I did. Well, in school I was trying to fit in to the mainstream. So like I said, I cut my hair and I was clean shaved, so I was kind of fitting in. But what I noticed, it doesn't really matter what you look like. I feel right now, what I look like, I'm proud of it, and this is my identity. Now for me, being a salesperson and selling homes, I can stand out actually out of the mainstream, so people will remember me. Where being blended into the other mainstream community, people will forget you. Now if somebody sees my face and they see that on the road, on the sign, they'll probably remember me more than comparably to the other people. I think anything people do out there is important to certain people. So for me to give out my voice is, I'm kind of giving out my experience, maybe who somebody can go ahead and see what kind of problems we're facing, so they may go back and change that in time or in the future for the coming generations, so people will not face the same problems.
Well, I think one thing is that everybody is unique, and if you really want to document the experience of immigrants, you're documenting Punjabi immigrants, but any immigrants. So it's good to capture as many voices as possible. So then you will have a richer documentation, richer experience. That's one thing for a journal, that why you want to document. And why me? I think I was involved in like literary and cultural organization, so I could, some of the things which I can tell you, I could give you that kind of insight into that. So other than that, the people who were not involved in those kind of organizations, they might not have, for them these things don't matter. So I think that's what I can contribute by talking about those things. But I think generally is that as many people, everybody has a different story to tell, and we need to get them.
ਘਰ ਦੀ ਕਹਾਣੀ ਦੱਸਣ ਦੀ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਲੋੜ ਨਹੀਂ। ਹਾਂ, ਉਹ ਆਪਦੇ ਪਰਦੇ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ। ਬੰਦਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬੁੱਢੀ ਬੋਲਦੀ ਨਹੀਂ, ਬੰਦੇ ਹੀ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ। ਜੇ ਬੁੱਢੀਆਂ ਹੁੰਦੀਆਂ ਇਕੱਠੀਆਂ ਤਾਂ ਬੁੱਢੀ ਨਾਲ ਬੁੱਢੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਲੈਂਦੀ ਆ, ਨਹੀਂ ਕੋਈ ਲੋੜ ਨਹੀਂ।
I don't know where it comes from, but it's just part of my nature that it's important to always give a voice to the voiceless. I think Canadian society, for the most part, is set up that people do have a venue to voice. But however, immigrants who may come here may have a problem with the language skills. They may not be able to voice in that context. Traditionally, people in Punjab, they look up to the people who can read and write and think that they don't have anything to offer, but actually they have a lot to offer. And you have to even maybe enlighten them on that they have their oral stories to enlighten people. It's just a different kind of knowledge. And you can get a lot of rich history. It's a good way to keep hold of the history of the community. For instance, my grandmother, like your grandmother, couldn't read and write, but we audio taped her telling the story of the family coming across from the Pakistan side of Punjab with partition and migrating. So we have her oral story of partition. It's very important to get the voices of the people at the grassroots, who are really at the heart, who are impacted and affected by these things. And you can learn a lot from these little stories, but there tends to be this reverence that you have to be somehow literate to be able to have something worthy to say. But that's